Hi, I'm Libby Gibson, Town Manager. Welcome to What's Going On in Town Government. We did not have a board meeting this week because we had a special town meeting, actually two, last night. Despite prior predictions, we A, got done in one night, and B, did not have an overflow into the gym, which we were planning on. In fact, we didn't have a quorum sufficient to vote on numerous financial articles.
How many registered voters do we have in the town?
We have approximately 9,038.
Okay, and I don't think, how many people showed up last night?
Less than 400.
Less than 400. So, you know.
I don't know what to say.
There you go.
We've been talking
like
about this since June.
And
we did massive amounts of public outreach. We've been talking about it. We've had announcements about it. There have been articles in the paper about it. There's been videos on NCTV. There's been Geno TV videos. There's been information.
No, there weren't any videos on my channel.
Well, that's why.
Just you and I. Well, that may have something to do with it, but that's okay.
But we've talked about it repeatedly here.
Exactly.
The radio covered it. We had a lot of social media out on it. We went to the Stop and Shop the other day. So I don't. One conclusion might be, there's a couple of conclusions you can make, and I guess it all depends on where your perspective is or what you want the outcome to be or not be, but one could conclude that there's voter lack of interest. Maybe that means they're happy with things and they don't really care how they go and they're going to be fine. One could say that people just don't have time, which is probably somewhat valid.
That's all we have is time. I hate that I don't have time. It's priorities.
It's priorities. Yeah, there's.
It's okay. You know,
I mean,
you're right,
they
don't care.
Could
Obviously,
be.
they don't care enough, or they're not angry enough to go out and vote. They just, or they just don't care. So they obviously
Don't mind
other
what the
people
outcome
decide.
is.
So there's no reason for anybody to complain then. Is that how you look at it?
Well, that is. Yes, that's
All
how I
right,
look at
let's
it.
go
If
through.
you don't go, you don't get to complain.
So we'll
Except
go through.
we know that's not reality.
So we'll go through the articles, and then we'll talk about some of the ones that we couldn't vote on, too.
Okay.
Okay?
So there were 16 articles on Special Town Meeting 1. Of the 16 articles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 were called. Of the 8 that were called, we could not vote on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them because we did not have the sufficient quorum. For a special town meeting, the town of Nantucket has a bylaw that requires a quorum of 5% of registered voters for appropriations, 3% for transfers. We had one transfer article which passed in the end, and the rest were appropriation articles which now have to be put probably onto the annual town meeting.
So we're not going to be able to start working.
Oh, we don't even have.
We would, if people had voted, let's say the Old South Road corridor, all the work that we wanted to do on that, right?
Yeah.
What if we had voted that last night? When could we have started working on
Well,
that?
it's still subject to a ballot questions, there are two, at the November ballot. So to back up a tad, we were in trying to make things efficient and streamlined and save money. If you're having a special town meeting, if you're having a special town meeting, or if you need a ballot question, let's put it that way, for some town item, if there's a state election and you get approval from the Secretary of State's office, before August 1st-ish, you can get your question on the state ballot. Depending on what type of question it is, you can't just do anything that's certain ones. These are allowed, debt exclusions. There are 2 debt exclusions. They are allowed to go on the state ballot. So the idea was we vote on them at town meeting, and then there's a ballot vote shortly thereafter at the November election. Okay? You have to have an affirmative town meeting vote and ballot vote. It doesn't matter what order they're in.
Okay.
So because we didn't vote on them at this special town meeting, they are already on the ballot, state ballot. So we will vote on them then. If they pass, we will put those questions back on the annual town meeting. If they fail, we might put them back on the town meeting, but then we're going to have another ballot question.
Okay.
So,
but let's just imagine that they did pass. Okay, if it did pass, now we have to wait till town meeting before we can actually go to work.
If there's an affirmative town
If there
meeting
is one
vote.
on
And
November.
then, and there's a big lead time in any event for the engineering and design work and procurement and
But
all
we're
that.
still, but
We
that
were-
does
we
backs
were-
us up, doesn't it?
It backs us up,
Yeah.
yeah, by, I'm not sure if a year, possibly close to a year.
Oh, wow, okay. I didn't think it
Close.
would be that long, but that
May-
is
maybe-
amazing.
maybe half a
Okay.
year,
There you go.
anyway.
Yeah, I would say 6 months. at the
But you know,
minimum.
thinking it through, if I haven't really thought this through 100% yet, but if the ballot questions fail at the November ballot, then we have to start from scratch. Potentially, we would put ballot questions on the annual election ballot and the annual town meeting ballot. That actually might be what we would think about doing, unless people feel strongly that there's a message from the voters now that they do not want this.
Okay, well, we'll know
There's
in
that too.
November.
Yes, we'll know in November. Okay, so those,
All right,
we had lots of discussion about marijuana.
let's go through them.
Okay,
Just-
Article 1 was a zoning bylaw amendment for the definitions pertaining to marijuana. There were 2 amendments, floor amendments that passed. There were more proposed, 2 passed, and the motion to adopt the article with these 2 amendments passed.
And what's the article basically say?
Well, it
For people
basically.
who didn't read it and didn't go.
It basically lines up the recreational marijuana definitions with the state regulations, which we did not know at the annual town meeting.
Okay, so we basically approve of it.
Yes, well, we basically have defined what it is in accordance with state law.
Okay,
All right, Article 2 was a couple of more use chart amendments. Now, I'm not the zoning person, okay? I know, I can't know
how
absolutely
close
everything.
they should be to each other if they're competing.
No, that wasn't,
That was not number 2?
no, I think that was actually number 1.
Oh,
And that was,
Oh, okay.
that was Article 1, number 1. Minimum separation of establishments. It was proposed to be 500 feet. This is one of the amendments. And it ended up voting in as 2,000 feet.
yep.
That had a lot of discussion.
And then one lawyer decided that he wanted to throw it back to 1,000 and everybody said no.
Correct.
Right.
So 2 has
So
to
it's gonna be
do,
2,000 feet, has to be 2,000 feet separating any recreational marijuana selling place. Has to be at least 2,000 feet, which is what? Half a mile, basically?
close to it.
Maybe a little more.
2 had to do with the use charts for zoning in, they have this use chart of what you can do where. And we were adding in a couple of definitions that, again, are consistent now with state law. So that didn't have much discussion and that passed. 3 was public consumption of marijuana. And that's somewhat covered in state law, and there was a amendment to that to allow, so basically you can't smoke marijuana in any public place on Nantucket. Public buildings, schools, streets,
Smoking,
sidewalks.
right.
It's just like smoking. In fact, might be news to people, but we do have regulations, Board of Health regulations that prohibit smoking in any
It
public area.
didn't say smoking though in the article, it just said
No.
taking marijuana,
It says-
using marijuana at all.
Well,
in
it's
the-
possession and it's public consumption.
Right, public
No
consumption.
person shall smoke, burn, vaporize, ingest, or otherwise use or consume, blah, blah, blah.
Ingest, so that changes it.
How so?
Well, there was an amendment to change it for people who have a
Well,
medical card.
Yeah, it doesn't, so the only thing was that.
Yeah.
If you have the medical, if you're ingesting or possessing
You could
for
smoke it,
medical
can't you?
reasons.
You could smoke it too? If you, I don't think people would do that if they
No, I don't
had the
think they would-
medical.
yeah, I don't think they would do
smoke,
that.
right? Okay,
I mean, hope not. That could get tricky.
that could.
We didn't get into that.
I know, but it was something I thought of. The first thing I thought of when they brought it up was smoking, because that's what,
That's what most people think of,
Yeah.
first thing. That passed with that amendment about the medical. Article 4 had to do with licensing. That wasn't even called and it passed. So basically, it authorizes the select board to adopt regulations that pertain to the licensing of the recreational establishments. Article 5 was a bylaw amendment to limit the number of recreational establishments. Our limit was proposed in the article to be not more than 20% of year-round package store licenses. And this is allowed by state law. You can either have no limit at all, or you can have a limit of that formula. And if you want to have less than that formula, you can, but it has to be a ballot vote in addition to a town meeting vote.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so there was some discussion about this.
There was.
And it ended up passing.
Yeah, which you know, fair enough, but I could understand the point of other people. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
that
people have
limits
opinions
us to
about
only
it.
two.
Correct. Well, as somebody pointed out,
That can change.
that can change depending on the number of package store licenses. Right now, we are at our limit on package store licenses. For the time being, the number is 2.
But we could come back at another town meeting and say, two's not enough. It's
We
not
could,
fair.
yes, we could do that.
Because that was I think that's probably why it passed.
Yeah, and
Because we want to go slow rather than,
correct. And
too
it's, a
fast.
couple of people said it's a lot easier to let the reins out than pull them in.
you got it.
6 and 7 were appropriation articles for Old South Road transportation improvements and Milestone Road area transportation improvements. Couldn't act on them, didn't have a quorum. Those are the 2 things that are on the ballot. We had several other, I won't go through them all, okay?
No.
Appropriation articles that we're gonna have to put on the annual. And then we had Article 16, a regulation limiting the use of sale and commercial use of single-use plastics. I don't have the amendment in front of me, Gino, but what was in the warrant changed. The petitioner, this was a citizen's article, came in with a modified proposal at the town meeting. And there were several amendments, well, maybe not several, there were one amendment which was defeated, one amendment which passed. So in a nutshell, there's a list of items that are not allowed to be sold commercially or used commercially.
You mean as far as?
What was approved, including single-use water bottles, water, not soda, water, including sparkling, coffee pods, and
Like
six-pack
restaurant,
yolks.
takeout containers.
Well, those are already banned by Public Works regulation. Okay, so these other things, and it's all gonna be put online, and, okay, so it passed. The intent was that it be effective June 1st, 2019. There was an amendment that delayed that to 2020. Now, the bylaw amendments that all towns approve at town meeting must get approval by the Attorney General's office in order to be effective. So these bylaws that we approved several. The marijuana were bylaws, single-use plastic was bylaw. That has to go to the Attorney General's office. And we already received some feedback from, I guess what I would call the industry about this.
Oh, really? Which
Yeah,
one?
a beverage,
They don't like it.
no.
Well, they're gonna have to,
I think they
Smarten
don't, I mean, I shouldn't say they don't like it, they are
who pays?
questioning it.
Let me ask you this, Libby. Who, when we buy a container of what they sell us, that container, what do we do? Who's responsible for that container after we use it? Us or the corporation?
Us.
Okay, so when we have that container that we throw in the landfill, how do we get that container that we threw in the landfill? Does the corporation pay to have it shipped off?
No, but let me clarify.
needed
We
to
don't
make sure
throw
that
it in the
people understood.
landfill.
Huh?
We don't throw it in the landfill.
Yeah, but we're shipping-
We separate it out
Yeah, but
into
we're-
recyclable
Yes.
categories, and then, yes, it has to be shipped off at
Gotcha.
our expense.
It would be probably cheaper if it could be compostable and not have to be shipped out.
So, right, so there's a
And
lot.
wouldn't it be safer too? I mean, where are we
Yeah, I
shipping
mean,
it to?
yes to all of that. I
Yeah,
think there was some
everyone knows
concern.
that.
Yeah, I think there was just some concern that we need some time to adjust to this, make accommodations for this, and figure out how we're going to educate people about it and enforce it.
Well, I don't think there's any question about the need to clean up chemical-based
Yeah, no,
things
I
that
don't
are in the
either.
ground and in the ocean.
I don't-
It's a no-brainer, so we just need
Yeah.
to start making it happen
I
somehow.
know, and I agree with all of that, but when you're in a position like mine, who has to be somewhat in charge of enforcing it and making clear what the town's role is and what accommodations the town's going to have to make now and what education needs to go out
We
there.
almost have 2
It is a
years.
big
Yeah,
deal.
so we almost have 2 years to get ready for it, and we should be ready by then, right? Is that what it means?
I hope so, but I mean, it's not a 5-minute effort.
No, but
it's a-
we have
it's a
2
big
years to
effort.
educate people.
I know,
And
but,
there's no reason why we shouldn't start, like, encouraging businesses.
I know, I'm just saying, it takes a while and there's a whole lot of other things that town staff
You have to
work
do
on.
it, but I don't have to, and I'm gonna continue to educate, help
Okay,
people
you
learn
are-
not to use it.
In charge of the
I'll be
education.
in charge of that.
You're the I'm
And I'll
deputizing.
tell you right now, I'm gonna go to the Stop and Shop and tell them, stop using those petroleum-based bags for me to put my tomatoes in. Give me paper or give me something that's biodegradable. There's no reason why we should use petroleum-based,
Yeah,
that's what they are.
I can't, I don't know.
They say they're recycled, but they're only recycled from pieces of, like those water bottles.
Anyway,
Those
this is
go in the
going to
dump.
be a big deal. So this
Okay.
has to go, again, has to go to the Attorney General's office, so we can't really do much until we know if this is approved.
Well, I'll be also going to some other towns that already have approved it and have adopted it.
So other towns have not approved the list that we have.
Okay.
There are a few other towns in Massachusetts that have banned plastic water bottles or plastic straws. That's it. I don't know of any other town
But
that
they
has
did ban
banned
the water
much
bottles.
more than that. There are a couple of towns. Now, in our town, you can't really easily go to the next town and get your plastic water bottle. In Concord, Mass, you can. I'm just
Matt
saying.
Lowell got up, I always love hearing from him. He's entertaining at the very least. And he said something about how he loves Nantucket water.
Yes.
And he's such a frugal guy that he reuses his straws.
He reuses everything.
But he said he can wash that through the dishwasher 8 times before it breaks down. I mean, do you want to drink out of a straw that's starting to break down, that's made of plastic?
No,
That's what I'm saying.
okay, that's why I am using
Yes.
reusable straws.
Yes. That's all. It's
I wish
just
I had my
healthy.
reusable straw right now so I could show it to you, but I don't have it with me. I don't carry it on me. I should. Okay. So, that was special town meeting 1. Special town meeting 2 was entirely citizen generated and had 3 articles on it. We started special town meeting 2, you left, Gino, but it was probably around 8:45-ish, somewhere
Yeah.
around there. So the first article had to do with a bylaw amendment that will require a town meeting vote for the use of town property for erosion control projects. A lot of discussion about that. There was an amendment, it was defeated. There was an amendment to establish a work group to look at this before we do anything more, and that was defeated. And in the end, there was a hand count and it was passed. That has to go to the Attorney General now. Secondly, we had a zoning article, which was a zoning map change on South Shore Road at the Surfside Crossing 40B property. And the zoning, okay, remember, I'm not a zoning expert, but in simple terms, as I understand it, it was seeking to change the zoning from 2 acre to 1 acre. Defeated. Article 3 was a bylaw amendment that would, in a nutshell, it was what was printed in the warrant, which everybody got in the mail, the warrant,
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
I got it.
It was replaced with a different motion at town meeting, a rewritten motion. So that's what we acted on, but the bottom line of it was that it was seeking to require a town meeting vote for the installation of private sewer lines in public roads. A lot of discussion about it. That ended up passing as well. That also has to go to the Attorney General's office, and there was some concern on the town council side of whether or not that approval will happen. Not concern, just commenting. This may or may not pass the Attorney General's office. It's not a normal bylaw amendment. Anyway, it did pass. So we got out of there around 10:15? Sort of early-ish.
So as far as people who didn't go, and I'm sorry I had to go, I couldn't see the tipping point then. How would you define that for the layperson about that whole area now? Did they get what they wanted, the folks that,
The people that called the special town meeting, I would say they got what they wanted.
okay. And explain what they got, again.
Well, so there were two groups. One was seeking to require a town meeting vote for erosion control projects on town property. That passed.
Okay,
And the other was seeking town meeting approval whenever a private sewer line would be going into a
I
public
see,
road.
all right, got it.
Passed.
So that's related to
Yeah,
that.
so that's related.
Got it.
So what I found a little interesting about the special town meeting is that on that one in particular, well, even special town meeting number 1, there was so much discussion about Old South Road and the Milestone Road proposed improvements at the annual, and people seemed to be unhappy at the annual about what they were hearing and seeing. So we really tried hard to have public information sessions over the summer and get input onto these into the designs and the issue overall. The articles were broken out from 1 which was at the annual to 2. And by the way, it passed at the annual town meeting but failed at the subsequent ballot. In any event, I was just amazed that after all of that, we didn't get a quorum.
I know.
After there was a massive zoning board of appeals hearing about the Surfside Crossing 40B in August with, I was not there, I was away on vacation, but over 700 people filled up the auditorium for this hearing. We had less
come
than
out when
400
they-
people at
yeah,
town
when-
meeting on
yeah,
this. Where
yeah.
did they go?
Well,
What I heard anecdotally was that a lot of those people were non-voters.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, I don't either, but where were
That's a
they?
tough number to say non-vote.
Anyway, maybe where they were was the article that passed will not impact that project. That project cannot be stopped
No.
because of that article. So
Right.
maybe people realized that and said, well, I'm not going to go. And there are still more ZBA hearings on the project too.
Okay,
Okay, ready to move on?
yeah.
Next week, we have a board meeting, and right now, on our agenda, we have, let's see here, it's not totally done yet. A couple things that, for people to know about. We're probably going to have a follow-up discussion about the town meeting, special town meeting, and just for the board to sort of recap what the follow-up actions are going to be, how things went, do we want to do anything different for the annual, that sort of thing. And we're probably going to have another discussion about establishing criteria for retail marijuana establishments. The board had started this discussion over the summer, and then early September, I think, said, okay, we're going to wait until after the special town meeting to resume this discussion, because we want to see if the articles pass, which they did. So now we're back to the discussion about the retail establishments. So basically, what we have heard a little bit, so a lot of towns are going through this right now. This is a very new situation for Massachusetts towns to have recreational marijuana establishments. There are licensing issues, zoning issues, what type of establishment do you want in your town issues, that kind of thing. So at least a couple of other towns that we know of, there may be more, have issued RFPs, requests for proposals, for out there, put it out there. So if you are a recreational marijuana establishment, you can submit a proposal. And the proposal has a lot of criteria, minimum criteria. You must meet these however many things in order for us to consider your application. And then some ranking criteria that can be used to rank the applications that come in. You know, you're highly advantageous if you do this, you are advantageous if you do this, and you're not advantageous if you do this. So we set the criteria. And it seems that one area of criteria that the board has discussed is whether or not the establishment is a local establishment. So for example, this is not written in stone. If I'm making this up almost right now, but this is somewhere along the lines of it. If all of the people in your company, your establishment, live on Nantucket, maybe you are a highly advantageous group. If half of them live on Nantucket, perhaps you're just advantageous. If none of them live on Nantucket or only one or two, then you are not advantageous. Something like that. I'm not saying that's what it is. That seems to be the thing that the board has talked about the most, the local aspect of who is running and backing the establishment.
Well, there's only going to be two to start.
There's only going to be two, and we've already issued one.
So they'll do whatever they need to bring in the
sure
kind
they
of
will.
money that I expect them to be able to make.
So, FYI, there is no deadline on this. The board can take as much time as it wants and feels is necessary to vet the applications. We have a moratorium right now on recreational establishments which runs through the end of the year, December 31st, 2018. That is not a deadline for the board to have to make a decision on what establishment to go with. They could do this in a year if they wanted. I don't think they're going to wait that length of time, but they could if they wanted to.
Got it.
Oh, one other thing about
Yeah.
that. There's also been some discussion at board meetings about the potential transfer of or sale of a license. So say one group comes in, they get the license, and then they decide to sell it to a different group. There's been some concern about control over that. In a town that I talked to earlier in the week, they actually have a bylaw that prohibits the transfer of licenses. So if you're a recreational establishment in that particular town and you give up your license or don't renew it, it goes out again for a completely new business.
An interesting statistic thrown out last night. Were you surprised when they said that towns that have open marijuana laws have less opioid issues?
I did hear that.
Have you heard that before?
I've heard it before, but honestly, I haven't actually seen that documentation. I'm sure it exists, and I'm sure there's documentation the other way.
Yeah, well,
There just is. It depends.
I guess it depends on how much opioid use you've got in the town too, obviously.
True.
Right.
True. So that marijuana thing is what we're doing next week, this STM recap. We also have a county meeting next week to follow up on something the board did a few weeks ago, which was to approve some road improvements on Old South Road that Richmond Great Point Development is doing as part of their project on Old South Road, that they are required to do by the planning board. So they're making improvements in the road. There's a median, there's a turning lane and some other stuff. In order for them to do improvements like that in a public way, the select board, as the controller of all public roads, needs to agree to that, which they did. And now now that this is a technical thing, there's two things. The road layout needs to be modified a little bit, which is a county matter. And also there is a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, between the two parties, the town/county and Richmond, that says, Richmond, you're going to do this, and town, you're going to do that. It's just basically a document that lays out who's going to do what, a binding document.
Well, that's good.
That's it.
That's good.
Okay.
Wow, that was a long one.
I know that was. I hope that wasn't too dull and boring.
Oh no, no, it actually wasn't. We've gone over.
It wasn't too terrible.
No, it's an important one. I mean, when you've got so many people that are registered voters that didn't go, this is going to help them at least be updated on what happened.
Yeah.
So.
And we'll get some stuff out online about what happened too.
Of course.
I was going to mention something else. What was it? Oh, this weekend and the potential storm.
Oh.
The storm,
I don't think we're getting
Hurricane
rain, are we?
Michael. We're getting rain and a little wind, is what I'm hearing.
Okay.
Maybe a
I
lot
thought
of
it'd be
rain.
raining already.
I know, I kind of did too. I actually, one of the select board members and I were supposed to go off island tomorrow to a Cape Cod Selectmen's Association meeting where guess what they were going to be talking. Guess what they're talking about? Marijuana licensing. So we thought it'd be really
interesting.
good to hear that. But we're afraid we'll get stuck off island, so we're not going to go.
No, can't go.
No, it just
I'm going to go
happens.
do the game on Saturday. And I'll be at Boston Latin. You know
Oh.
about that town?
No,
That
no.
school?
Well, I have obviously heard of it.
Third highest rated public school.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But
Good
apparently they're 0-5 football. So it should be an interesting game. They're in a higher bracket than
yeah.
we are. So
Wow.
We'll be filming it. You can watch it live on your phone.
Oh, good, okay.
Okay.
I'll be sure to do that,
Okay. Go Whalers.
maybe. Go Whalers, definitely
See?
go Whalers.
I knew I could
Yeah.
at least get that out of you.
All right, Gino, that's it.
Yep.
Thank you very much, see you next time.